Yes. But the story that I've got was gathered sometime in the 19th century when, yes, they would have still had what was almost in effect a Stone Age culture. They would make weapons out of bone and sinew. They would make weapons out of the leg veins of partridges. In my story, this girl is abandoned as she has to gather her food by catching partridges using snares made out of the leg veins of the partridges she caught the day before. She weaves a duvet out of leg veins and feathers. She makes a lasso out of tree roots and catches a reindeer, a baby reindeer, and then she gets the whole reindeer herd. She tames wolf cubs to herd her deer for her. So she's an incredibly resourceful person, and she's gained all that knowledge from watching her mother hunt and fish and salt down meat for the winter.
This sort of concluded what we did yesterday, and we'd love you to come along to tomorrow's show, which is at 2:30, and we will be joined by, again, a number of very amazing and eminent scientists. We're going to have from the Institute of Healthy Aging, Professor David Gems, who's going to deal with immortality. But first, to deal with immortality, one has to ask the question of aging. And he doesn't necessarily think it's quite the bad thing of us being able to live forever. So it'd be interesting possibly for you to come and see whether you agree with him or not, and see what our sort of artistic responses are about that. We also have quantum physicist Ryan Nichol, who will be telling us about firing a sextillion neutrinos through the Earth and listening to microwaves in Antarctica in order to measure supernova activity. We also have Chris Arridge, who is a planetary scientist coming from the Mullard Space Science Institute, and he'll be talking about to us about the ice giants and what the sort of repercussions there might be of finding other moons and stars around other planets apart from our own solar system, and you know what that has as an implication for alien life forms. And we also have
not the aliens.
Not the aliens. What do we do about them?
We come in peace.
And we also have a little space quiz. So if you fancy yourself a little bit of a geek king or queen of the Boffin Hood, please do come, because if you win, you will get a free ticket to Wilderness.
A free ticket to Wilderness!
Yeah. Woo! And Wilderness is the newest in the edition of amazing festivals that Secret Productions puts on, as Ben has just told us. It'll be in its second year, and it'll be 5 amazing pristine lakes that you get to go and swim in.
Swim time!
Yeah, steam
Just
room and
exciting stuff.
very nice. So if you're a bit tired of all this mud, you will not get that there. And Rodrigo and Gabriella playing,
which is awesome.
Hello, my name is Martin Zoltz-Orstrick. I am a lecturer in Advanced Spatial Analysis and Visualization at the UCL Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis. And I normally say that I'm a social physicist because my background's in physics. I worked in solid state physics, and then I worked in medical physics for a while, and now I sort of use my mathematical skills to try and understand social systems, and normally systems that have a sort of spatial aspect. So some of the work I've done is to do with hire bikes in London, and I'm doing a little bit of work at the moment on the way that people use TfL to understand how people move around the city of London. So I'm looking forward to taking part in the event tomorrow. I'm doing a couple of things, actually. The first thing I'll be doing is a talk about chaos and complexity. And chaos and complexity, the two words which have sort of particular meaning the way that people use them in general. And then in science they have a very specific meaning. So chaos doesn't mean random, it just means unpredictable. The two are different things. And complexity, I try to explain what the difference is between something which is complex and something which is complicated. The two in science don't mean exactly the same thing, so I'm hoping that some of there'll be some ideas that will spin off from that people will take a little bit of inspiration from. And the second thing that I'm doing is I'm also a musician. So in my daily life I'm a social physicist, but by night I'm a singer-songwriter and a guitar player. And I have a song about called the Grand Tour, which is about the voyage of the Voyager probe through the solar system. and so I'll be playing that, and that's very much from the point of view of the Voyager probe, exploring this slightly frightening but very exciting world. I think that the art-science divide is something that's very overemphasised. It's probably a little bit of I wouldn't say it's an outdated fashion. It's very easy to look at extreme ends of the spectrum. You can look at a particle physicist and look at a painter and say they're doing something totally different. But there are lots of points in the middle of the continuum where the two can inform one another. There's sort of famously a quote from the physicist Paul Dirac, who said something like, "Science tries to find something complicated and explain it in a simple way, and poetry does the opposite of that. It takes something simple and makes it complicated," which I think is a very philistinical view of the purpose of art and science. I think a lot of artists are interested in understanding the world just from a different perspective. I don't think science is always the right perspective to understand the world. I think there's some fields where it's very difficult to see how art or a layperson, like a non-specialist, could influence them. Like if you're doing a particularly weird bit of mathematics, so it's very, very abstract, it's very pure. It's hard to see how an artist or just a non-specialist, not a non-mathematician, would influence what you would do. But that's unusual. I think actually most areas of science and academic research, they have some practical impact, and not only can they have an impact on society, but society can have an impact on them. So if you're working in medicine, it's pretty clear that you should be listening to the views of patients and things like that. And the field I work in, a big part of what we do is visualizing data, as well as the modelling, mathematical modelling, but it's trying to make very, very complicated data understandable. And artists, one of the things that artists can do is work out how to convey something, how to communicate something. Not necessarily data, but that's a new field that is emerging. I think that of data art.
And I'd like Simon to join in this conversation in that what particularly about this sort of project regarding science it sort of motivated you, interested you? How particularly did you guys approach the topic?
Well, I've personally always been interested in science. Throughout sort of school, I was always studying it. Went on to A-level, did A-level biology and all that. And but at the same time, I've always been an artist, and that's kind of been my strongest passion. So I've always actually through life found it very difficult to juggle the two, because you find that in the education system, for instance, they don't cater for both. They kind of, you're either an artist or you're a scientist, but both, what do you mean? So when I got offered the opportunity to put both together, not only art and acting and science, but also to my writing as well, it just sort of it blew my mind. I thought that's perfect, that's what I've been searching for. So it's been really exciting, and I think that art and science are totally interlinked, and it's a shame that people can't see that more. They just have different languages, that's all, really. Do
you think they're both storytellers in their own right?
Definitely storytellers, and also artists, like if you look at any kind of structure of how the brain works, or the synapses, the maps of the synapses, it looks beautiful. You look at a nebula, you look out into space, it's beautiful, it's art, and this is where a lot of artists get their inspiration from in the first place. It's all interlinked at the end of the day.
And did you face any challenges at points?
A major challenge. I've been writing for a while, but I've not necessarily actually got up and performed my writing. I've done like short scripts and stuff, but to actually come up and do my poetry on stage to music as well, that was a huge challenge for me.
So just to recap, you did a Time for Us, which is spoken word set to another song, also of the same name. And was it like a challenge particularly to deal with, oh my god, this is a scientific theme, I have to stick to a theme?
Not really. It wasn't so much that. It's more, the science sort of, that's something I felt comfortable with. What I felt more uncomfortable with was the fact that I was bearing my own sort of thoughts and ideas on the subject, and it's me on stage. There's no barriers, there's no character, do you know what I mean? This is me on stage, making myself vulnerable and saying exactly what I feel, what my thoughts are, which can be maybe a bit out there for some people. So it's that whole kind of